Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. My name is Devin Rafferty and I will be your professor for macroeconomic principles on this online course. Today's lecture, Lecture 1, Part 1, we're going to start off by talking first about the syllabus, which we do need to go over. Secondly, we're going to talk about the history of economic thought, just a brief, broad introduction to it. Okay? And thirdly, we're going to end up talking about the Heilbronner article entitled Economic Systems that I assigned. So, for the syllabus in this course, as you can see, this is just the general material. Okay? Obviously, you're in macroeconomic principles. It's an online course. I'm Dr. Devin Rafferty. My office is in the economics department of Hillsdorf Hall on the 4th floor. That is next to the Student Center, the new McMahon Student Center. Building directly adjacent to that. Just go inside, get in the elevator, go up to the 4th floor, go in the economics department, you'll find my office right there. Okay? When am I there? I don't technically have any set office hours this summer. However, I'm almost always in my office. So feel free to drop by if you have any questions, concerns, things of that nature, and you can always email me to set up an appointment as well. My phone, I'm extension 6207. Okay? My cell phone is also listed on the syllabus, but that's for emergencies only. Okay? Very dire situations. The best way to get in touch with me would be via email. Okay? It's drafferty1. You have to put a 1 after the Rafferty, or else it's going to go to another D. Rafferty. Okay? So the primary book for this course is Case and Fair's Principles of Macroeconomics. It's the 8th edition. It's also written with a person named Oster, O-S-T-E-R. Okay, so it's Case, Fair, and Oster, Macroeconomics, 8th edition. You can find that at the bookstore right now. However, if you can find a book that is cheaper, doesn't have to be the 8th edition, it can be the 6th or the 7th, that's perfectly fine as well. Okay? It is of utmost importance to understand the text is not the course. Okay? In fact, the text is simply recommended. You can. It's not encouraged. But you can make it through the course without purchasing the text. We're only going to be using 4 to 5 chapters from the text. Okay? Most of the course, and hence the textbook is recommended. Most of the course, it's recommended but not essential. Most of the course will consist of other occasional readings, handouts, PowerPoints, films, okay, things like that. The material covered in the lectures almost always goes beyond the text. In fact, it always does go beyond the text. Therefore, I would encourage you to get the book. It's recommended because it's a very nice supplement for students to have, but it's not essential, and it is of vital importance to grasp that simply reading the text does not prepare you in any way for the exams. The exams use a variety, covers all the material listed underneath the topics for the week in the syllabus, which we'll get to in a second. Okay? There are no prerequisites, so what is macroeconomics? Unlike microeconomics, macro takes a bird's eye view of the economy. We're going to be looking at the US economy, the Chinese economy. You could even say the EU, even though it's composed of Germany, Greece, Italy, Portugal, etc., is a national economy. In fact, I would argue that because once they removed much of the barriers of economic activity, it effectively became one big economy. So the EU is a national economy. Okay? That's important to remember. What we do in macroeconomics is we look at 3 big variables. Okay? We're concerned about employment, we're concerned about output, the amount of stuff the economy makes, and we're concerned about prices. Okay? In doing so, we're going to look at the role of the government in economic policy, money and banking, recessions and depressions, something we're all quite familiar with currently. Specifically in this course, right here it says, we're going to pay particular attention to the strengths and weaknesses of alternative traditions in macroeconomics. Of particular importance in this course, it will be probably the fundamental backbone structure of this course. Once we learn some basic introductory macro concepts, what we are going to end up doing is looking at 3 rival theories, okay, in macroeconomics. The same way that in American politics there's Democrats and Republicans, in macroeconomics there are at least 3 major schools, if you will, or parties, ways of thinking. Those 3 parties are the neoclassicals, which we're going to look at in week 3, the post-Keynesians, Keynes and the post-Keynesians, they form one group, which we're going to look at in week 4, and we're going to look at the third group, the textbook Keynesians, in week 5. Now, the name textbook Keynesian is used interchangeably sometimes with neoclassical Keynesian synthesis, okay? It's important to remember, sometimes students get confused about this. Keynes and the post-Keynesians are not really related to the textbook Keynesians. As the course goes, you'll see why they might share a name, or they do share a name. Why people might think they're related, but there really is a vast difference between those two. Okay? So that's going to be weeks 3, 4, and 5. It's going to be 3 rival economic schools, 3 rival traditions in macroeconomics. And we're going to look at what each of them believes, how they say the economy works, specifically how capitalism works. And then we're going to look at the policies they recommend that flow from their theories. Okay? Finally, in week 6, we're going to look at some contemporary problems of macroeconomics. Okay, student learning outcomes listed here. It's what you're going to be able to accomplish at the end of the course. Since this is an online course, what are your responsibilities? Since it's an online course, you are certainly responsible for reading the syllabus and adhering to the policies I've adopted. Okay? An online course, as I was thinking about how I was going to structure this and configure it, and what your requirements would be, attendance, how do you take attendance? The one thing I came to realize is that much of the burden of this course is actually going to be on you. You have signed up for it, and it is on your time that you have to watch these lectures and complete the exams. You know how sometimes when you're in a traditional class, face-to-face, the same way there could be students sitting in the desks that I'm lecturing at right now. I may bring up something such as, oh, by the way, the exam is due in 2 weeks, right? I can do my best to convey that through this video camera, but ultimately it's up to you to check the syllabus, look at when something is due, and do the necessary work in order to make sure that it is due on that day. I wish I could do more, I honestly do, to accommodate your learning needs, right? But it's an online course. There's really no other way you can structure it, okay? So therefore, this syllabus is really a binding contract, okay? We need to follow this and stick to this. Specifically, you need to follow this and stick to this, okay? If you have any disabilities, just, I'm going to go through this real quickly. If you have any disabilities, you're covered by the Americans with Disabilities Act. So, please notify Dr. Anna Cicerelli or Miss Elizabeth Kane, depending upon which school you're in. Okay? And they will accommodate your needs. Plagiarism. Since these are take-home exams, plagiarism is a relevant topic here. I take it incredibly seriously. You're taking credit for work that is not yours when you commit plagiarism. The easiest way to think, is this plagiarism? Am I plagiarizing? If you're using more than one word in a row from a document that's not yours, you're committing plagiarism. Okay? Now, certain words, go to the store, okay, those are generic words. But if you're using academic, intellectual thoughts, right, and there's more than one of those in a row, it's plagiarism. Put it into your own words, okay? I take it incredibly seriously. If you commit plagiarism, I report it, and I've found it before, okay? Grades. Your grades are going to be based on 5 examinations, okay? They're all worth 20%. Exam 1, Exam 2, Exam 3, Exam 4, and Exam 5, which is on the other sheet, okay? This is how I assign grades. Here is a very, very important concept, or at least something to appreciate. We need to remember this. Exams will cover all the material from the prior exam up to the end of that current section. Okay? So for example, Exam 1, which is due on June 9th. Okay? Exam 1 is due on June 9th. It will cover the material from week 1 and week 2, okay? So you'll have week 1's material, this lecture, right? And then the readings associated with it. The week 2 lecture that I'm going to make, and then the material associated with that. And then you will have at least 1 week before the exam is due, okay? Now, as I said in my email, what I'm going to attempt to do is have all of these lectures made up as soon as possible. I'm hoping to have them finished by the end of the week, which means I can then, this week is the week before Memorial Day. Okay? I'm hoping to have them all finished by the end of this week, so that way I can post them and you'll have all the lectures in advance. Okay? If that's not the case, you're definitely going to have at least the first 3 weeks. Okay? So when Exam 1 is due on June 9th, you can proceed throughout this course on a weekly basis, right? Every Monday, you can start reading the material and then looking at watching these lectures, and then you will have 1 week to complete the exam, okay? If, on the other hand, you get out ahead of yourself, right? Let's say we come back from Memorial Day, and on Tuesday, you decide to do week 1's material, and on Thursday, you decide to do week 2's material. You don't have to. You'll be perfectly fine if you treat this course on a weekly basis, which is how I structured it. But if you're going on summer vacation, or if you just find yourself with some free time, or if you turn out to love the material, you can't get enough of it, which I hope all of you do, then what you can do is get a little ahead, right? Do week 1's material, do week 2's material, and then you would have, say, 10 days, 11, 12 days to complete the exam. So if there's something you didn't understand, that would also give you some time to come by my office, okay? Even with the weekly setup, you'll still have plenty of time to come to my office. I'm not telling you that you have to get out ahead and do extra work. If you go on a weekly schedule, You should be perfectly fine in this course. Okay? My point is simply to convey to you that you do have the option of getting ahead. Okay? Back to the exams now. All the material for exam 1 is going to cover week 1 and week 2. After that, the exams start going on a weekly basis. Okay? So it's going to be exam 2 will cover only the material from week 3. Okay? So, and when I go to the schedule, we're going to talk a little more about the exam, so I'll come back to this if you have any more questions. But essentially it goes week 1 and week 2's material will be exam 1, and that's due week 3, the date of week 3, which is June 9th. Okay? Week 3's material is then due in week 4. Okay? Week 4's material is due week 5. Week 5 due week 6. You see the process now, okay? So for other than the first exam, which covers 2 sections, okay, what you're going to end up having is 1 lecture, 1 week's topics, that will be an exam. Okay, so that'll get us 5 exams. Okay, week 1 and week 2 are 1 exam. Okay, so that's your first exam, and then you have 2, 3, 4, and 5. Right? Those are for the exams, which will cover weeks 3, 4, 5, and 6. Right? That'll get us to our 5 exams, and we'll average those up, and it'll be your total grade. Okay? I'll come back to the exam in a second, though, when I do the schedule. There may be possibilities to earn extra credit throughout the semester. However, I cannot stress to you enough, extra credit is extra. It's not the course. It's offered at my discretion, and it does not substitute for student performance in the course. I want you to know the material that I have assigned on the syllabus. Extra credit is extra. It is not a substitute for the stuff I put on the syllabus. Okay? From now on, the text is referred to in the syllabus, in case you missed this, right? The actual text in the syllabus, I'm just using shorthand, case and fair. CF, it's case and fair. Okay. So in week 1, introduction to macroeconomics, the economic problem, and the macroeconomic approach to measuring national output and income. Okay? The way I've done this, the topic is, what is macroeconomics, right? Next to the date is going to be the topic. Today we're going to talk about what is macroeconomics. I've listed preparatory lecture material, okay? Essentially, these are documents, materials that I feel you should go over, look at, read them, review them before I begin the lecture's material, okay? So obviously, for this first one, you probably haven't done that, and when I'm done with the syllabus, I'm simply going to segue to the documents, okay? But other than that, for week 2, where it says, week 2, we're going to be doing supply, demand, and equilibrium. Before you look at this lecture, you should look at the PowerPoints of Chapter 3, which is Market Equilibrium. That's what it's called. And then it's recommended that you read Case and Fair Chapter 3. It's the chapter that deals with supply, demand, and market equilibrium. Okay? So for this week, your assignments coming into this lecture, which if you want to pause this lecture, come back to it after you've looked at these documents, you're perfectly fine. In fact, it's encouraged. But this week, we're going to be looking at History of Economic Thought Tree, which I'm going to proceed to in a second, the Monetary Theory of Production, something very simple, Robert Heilbronner's article that I've posted called Economic Systems, okay? And then the second portion of this lecture will be dedicated to PowerPoints, the macroeconomic approach and measuring national output and income. Also, it's recommended that you read chapters 5 and 6 in the book. Okay? Chapters 5 and 6 in the book follow the PowerPoints. Okay? So we have week 1, then there's week 2, supply and demand, right? And then from there, once you're done with that material, the following week, June 9th, exam 1 is due, which covers that material, covers the material from weeks 1 and week 2. Okay? Then in week 3, we're going to start our first macroeconomic model. The Democrats, the Republicans, right? The neoclassicals, the post-Keynesians, and neoclassical Keynesian synthesis, or what's called the textbook Keynesians. Okay? The first one we're going to look at there is the neoclassicals. They will be in week 3. So your first exam, which covers weeks 1 and week 2, will be due on June 9th, and then you can start looking at this material, okay, these handouts, okay, PowerPoints, which after you've looked at that, you have to complete an exam that will be due, did it go down far enough? I guess I didn't go down far enough. That will be due week 4, which is June 16th, okay? That's when the second exam will be due. This exam will cover the previous week's topics, okay? So like I said about 5-10 minutes earlier, weeks 1 and week 2 will be covered on the first exam. After that, each week we'll have an exam corresponding to it, okay? So you'll have an exam for week 3, week 4, week 5, and week 6. Okay? So if there's no more questions, right? I hope that covered all of the questions you've had. There was one more thing I wanted to say about exams. Oh, it's on the syllabus. Okay? I'm back up in the middle section of the syllabus under exams. Okay? The final exam, the 5th exam, which covers week 6, the essay section of that will be cumulative. Okay? That's the only cumulative exam you're going to have. That will be cumulative. Okay? Exams are due, and this is no exceptions. Exams are due by 11:59 p.m. the day listed on the syllabus. No exceptions. The day I list the exam is due, the exam is due at 11:59 p.m. Okay? You must submit it by email. Okay? So that day, you can email them in far in advance. That's fine with me. Okay? You don't have to, for example, the first exam, you don't have to submit it on June 9th. You could submit it on June 6th or tomorrow. Right? But the final time at which you may submit it, exam 1 that is, will be June 9th at 11:59 p.m. Okay? At midnight it becomes June 10th and I'm not taking it. Okay? You can't argue with me. It's via email because that way you can't argue and say, oh, it was 12:03. Well, 12:03 is the next day and it's right there in your email. Okay? Sorry, I hope we don't have any trouble with this. I'm not trying to be a stickler. I'm simply trying to keep up our academic standards, right? I don't think it is that hard for us to complete an exam, a take-home exam, that's due a week after you've had the material for it, right? So, outside of truly exceptional circumstances, there's no such thing as a late exam. I just won't accept it. Okay?